Zipper rolls out to the right, pitches off to Taylor, and Taylor's to the 20, down to the 15, down to the 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Billy Taylor scored a touchdown from 21 yards out. The crowd goes berserk. It was November 22nd, 1969. That they came to Barry, Michigan, all dressed in maize and blue. The words were said, the prayers were read, and everybody cried. But when they closed the coffin, there was someone else inside. Oh, they came to Barry, Michigan, but Michigan wasn't dead. And when the game was over, it was someone else instead. 11 Michigan Wolverines put on the gloves of gray, and as the organ played the victors, they laid Woody Hayes away. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue, and welcome to the Visitors Edition for this week. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Joining us in just a minute will be the longtime radio play-by-play voice of Middle Tennessee State football, Chip Walters. First, my view from Section 17 to get us going today. We're just 2 days away from the opener now, and I can't wait to tee it up and get this thing started. As Nick Baumgartner said on Tuesday's show, these guys, Middle Tennessee State, aren't your usual chump opener, and those were his words. They are a decent football team. That said, I think we have to roll these guys up in the opener. I mean, we can't get crazy if we have some hiccups on both sides of the ball. I am anxious, though, to see what the offense looks like. Part of me thinks we'll have a vanilla game plan so we don't show much, but the other part of me would like to see us go out there and open it up from the get-go. If you listen to this show on a regular basis, even during basketball season, it feels like we spend a lot of time previewing the upcoming football season. You just get to a point in June and July where you're tired of speculation and talking about if we do this, if we do that, if this happens, if that happens, etc., etc. I think you know what I mean. We're ready to get it going and have something concrete to talk about. So hang in there, gang. We only have a few more days to wait. Middle Tennessee State is a Conference USA team. We are bigger and faster than they are and have more talent than they do at every position group. On paper, this looks like the kind of game that could get out of hand early, and I hope it does. But it's the opener, and crazy things can happen in the first game of the year. We've seen that before. I apologize in advance for the audio quality of the interview. Chip was using his cell phone, and I think he had me on speaker, so his volume is a little bit low. Up next is Chip Walters, the longtime radio play-by-play voice of Middle Tennessee State football, here on the Michigan Man, in partnership with our friends at SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Here with us on our visitor segment as we get ready for the big opener on Saturday evening is the longtime radio play-by-play voice of Middle Tennessee State football and basketball, Chip Walters. Chip, great to have you with us.
Hey, appreciate the time today.
Well, Chip, it's the first ever meeting between Michigan and the Blue Raiders. It's in the big house. It's the opener, a big TV audience with a 7:30 p.m. kickoff. A big opportunity for Coach Rick Stocktill's team, isn't it?
Well, it is, and and we're the only team in Conference USA this year that's playing. We're part of the group of five, I guess, in Conference USA, and we're the only team this year playing three Power Fives. We go to Iowa in 4 weeks, and also have Duke at home this year. So, but Michigan is, it's one of those special places in college football, and I'm sure, I probably soak in the history part a little more than, probably the 18 to 22-year-olds that'll be on the field. They will appreciate this opportunity and this trip a little more as time goes on. Right now, they're more locked in on Shea Patterson and True Wilson and things like that. But I'm looking forward to being there, experiencing Michigan Stadium, being able to get around on campus on Saturday morning, things like that. I mean, I was trying to think when the last time that Michigan and Middle played in anything. And I know we played in basketball in Birmingham back in the late 80s, and Middle actually got the win in that game at a tournament hosted by UAB. I guess we're trying to see if there's some old lightning in a bottle somewhere. I guess coming to Ann Arbor this weekend.
Is the fan base pretty excited? I know it's Labor Day weekend. That might sort of put a crimp in some of the travel plans for a lot of folks. But overall, you think it's a pretty good crowd that Middle Tennessee State's going to bring?
Well, I think Middle fans like to go to new places as well. I'm not sure what the ticket allotment was for this game, but I've actually just kind of running into people. Really, kind of some people I didn't expect to make the trip. I'm hearing them say, "Yeah, we're going," and it's not you can from Nashville. It's pretty easy flights to Detroit and pretty pretty cost effective to go. And we've had a really, really hot summer here, and I'm not sure that one more weekend at the lake or something. When they can look and say, "Oh, it's going to be 71 on Saturday." That's kind of appealing after the hot weather that we've had this year. I think we've set a record for days over 95 this year. But I had to start going through the closet looking for, okay, now where's that long sleeve Blue Raider Network shirt that I got to wear? I'm gonna put in the bag for this weekend. Bottom line, I think we're gonna have pretty good crowd up there, and we play every year we play at least a couple of these type games, and it gives our fans an opportunity to go and see some really fun places and some good destinations.
Well, Chip, most Michigan fans don't know a whole lot about Middle Tennessee State football. They do know the Blue Raiders play in Conference USA and are coming off a very good year, aren't they?
Well, we had another bowl year, and that's I think if you wanted to say how could you best describe Rich Stockstill's tenure at Middle, and it would be consistency would be the word, because we've been in bowl games 4 out of the last 5 years, and we've had plenty of we're in the conference championship game a year ago. We have been in that because of the schedule we play. It's hard for anybody in our league to have that 10-win season, 12-win season, because you are typically playing up at least once, maybe twice, in our case 3 times this year. And our league is very competitive. When you look at ourselves, Marshall, Lane Kiffin has brought FAU up. North Texas is going to be really good this year. Louisiana Tech has been very consistent and very good. They play at Texas this weekend. Southern Miss has made their way back. UAB was the story of college football a couple of years ago when they, brought their program back after shuttering it. So, it's for us to have done what we've done and get to that 7-8 win mark on a consistent basis, get in bowl games, and that's one of the goals every year. And it's that has been, really the thing. If you could, describe what Rick Stockstill's program is about, it's been about consistency and competitiveness. Well,
Coach Stockstill's been head coach for 14 years now. The record overall, 87 and 78, as you said, very consistent. That is a long tenure these days in college football, so the powers that be down there must be very happy with the job he's doing.
Well, what he did when he came in is he inherited a situation. I mean, we were competitive. Andy McCollum had taken the program into at that time 1A status from Division I AA. Middle was a 1 AA power for years. Middle, Eastern Kentucky, Georgia Southern, Marshall, where they were in that group that was always good. in 1AA football. And Andy, did a great job putting Middle into the 1A era. There were some shortcomings on the academic side that when the APR rankings came out, the folks were not necessarily that happy about it. Well, Coach Stock came in, got that turned around, and within 2 years had the APR ranking in football back to where it was in the top 10 in the country. Up with the Dukes, Northwesterns, Michigans, Vanderbilts, Floridas, that all have the really good APR numbers in football. And he did that, and he brought that level of consistency. They fundamentally, typically are very sound. His teams are built. As we go into this weekend, this team is not built to play Michigan's every week. This team is built to play a Conference USA schedule, which is more of a spread, speed type game. That's the downside of playing the Michigans and Iowas in particular, are how those teams are built. Although Michigan has a ton of speed, they've got just unbelievable size, in particular up front, and that's where you get into some mismatch situations, and you have to try to, figure out, okay, how can we coach and scheme our way around that? How do you solve that problem right there? Now, Duke, on the other hand, they come in the third week. Duke and Middle's teams are built personnel-wise in similar fashion, because the ACC is more of a speed league. Yeah, they got plenty of size, but not like what you see out of the Big Ten. So, Rick has built his team from day one on speed, quickness, and playing. They'll play tempo sometimes, and that has been, that's been what he's been all about.
Well, Chip, let's talk about the Blue Raider offense and what we're going to see on Saturday evening in the Big House. Last year, Coach Rick Stockstill's son was the quarterback, and he had a great career under center there, record-setting career, but he graduated. Who are we going to see taking snaps under center on Saturday?
Well, since Michigan does not put out a 2-deep, Middle Tennessee is not putting out a 2-deep this week. So, it has been a 3-horse race, basically, this fall. It has been two guys who have had some experience as being a backup, that being Asher O'Hara and Chase Cunningham. Chase has played in about 4 games in some mop-up duty a year ago, and Asher O'Hara, actually, last year Brent got hurt on the first play of the game at FIU, and O'Hara came in and played the rest of the game. Middle lost a 4-point game in Miami in that ball game, but he was throwing into the end zone on the last play of the game to potentially get the win. So O'Hara, very competitive, and Coach Stockstill has not gone to the point of naming a starter, but he has hinted around a little bit. And the last words, well, when we did his coach's show on Monday, his words were that he felt like Asher may be the most ready to jump in there. Well, the third guy is kind of the X factor, and the one, he's the guy that Middle fans are kind of waiting to see what he can do, and his name's Randall Johnson. He is a junior college transfer from California, and he is 6'4", 6'5", 230, big arm, can run it. Well, he's got that big arm, but sometimes he's not sure exactly where it's going to land. And so the thing is, he had to go to school through May. So he didn't get to come at Christmas break, and which would have been great for him to have gone through spring ball, but he was in school in California. Got here in late June, and so he's been playing catch up, not from necessarily a physical standpoint, but to absorb Tony Franklin's offensive system and to get up to speed there. So he's a little behind. He does have some physical tools that can help him make up some ground. Will we see him this week? I really don't know. We very well could, just to get his feet wet, but maybe not. I'm pretty sure we'll see Asher and Chase in the game on Saturday at quarterback. Who will be out there, on the first offensive play?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not quite sure, but if I had to bet, I would probably guess that it was going to be Asher O'Hara.
Well, as far as the running back situation, Chetan Mobley had a very nice year at running back last season. Picked up 660 yards, 4 TDs. Is he going to be the starter on Saturday?
Well, it's going to be interesting because it's hard for in our situation. It's more personnel groupings and I'm trying to think the last time we went with a one tailback was probably, 8 years ago when Benny Cunningham was here,
Mm-hmm.
and Benny went on and played for the Rams and the Bears and still playing, and he was a great back, and but in our situation it's more of a he has two backs. You've got Chetan Mobley and Terrell West, and really it's almost with those two guys, it's a down and distance type situation of who's going to be in there. West is the more lean, quick back. Mobley, good short yardage guy. He's got some bulk about him. And then there's a third guy who you may see different spots on the field named Brad Anderson. Go to the GoBlueRaiders.com website. There's a great story about his return from season-ending ankle dislocation a year ago and what his rehab has been about. But Brad is one of those guys who's just a playmaker, and sometimes he's like I think about a Dave Meggett kind of guy, third down back, really good catching the football, also gets to the edge, that kind of thing. So he would be kind of the third guy. You may see him in the slot. You may see him at running back, just depending on what the down and distance is. But West and Mobley, again, they're kind of I like to call them the thunder and lightning. Mobley being the thunder and West being the lightning, because he can be as quick as lightning sometimes when he finds a crease.
Well, Chip, who are some of the other names on the offensive side that Michigan fans can keep an eye out for on Saturday that are key contributors or could be?
Well, on the offensive side, we've a guy named Ty Lee, number 8. He is a small wide receiver. He's got over 200 career catches. NFL fans probably know who Richie James is. He played at middle and started his first game for the San Francisco 49ers last year and made the roster and he kind of became their kickoff return specialist and all that. Well, Richie he was a highlight receiver at middle. Lee is one of those guys. He is kind of fallen right into the footsteps of James, and he is a go-to, kind of always make the catch kind of guy. So you've got him. You've got C.J. Wyndham, Isaiah Upton, Jimmy Williams is a big target who they have high expectations of making a good jump from his sophomore to junior year. Along the offensive line, it's going to be almost a completely retooled offensive line as far as starters are concerned. You're going to have at least 4 of your guys have played a good bit a year ago as in backups, and as they roll those offensive linemen in and out. But the guys who were listed as starters a year ago, you had 3 lost to graduation. You had a couple of them mixed up in fall camp, so they'll probably play as well. But you're going to have they're very happy with their offensive line group. They're athletic, can run, so it's there's some question marks there, and probably the reason the offensive line doesn't Coach didn't sleep too well this week is when you're going up against Michigan's defensive front with some new offensive linemen. That makes you a little bit uneasy.
Here it is on our visitor segment this week is the radio play-by-play voice of Middle Tennessee State football and basketball, Chip Walters. A Chip, over on defense, 5 starters back, most notably free safety Reed Blankenship, strong safety Javante Moffitt, fifth-year senior linebacker Khalil Brooks leads a solid group back there. But there are a lot of new faces on this defense too, aren't there?
There are, and I tell you, and I am still learning them at this point. They are, and that's why we've got another couple of study days. But you know, they have recruited well. Scott Schaefer is the defensive coordinator, and Scott was a long time DC at Syracuse and was the head coach at Syracuse when Doug Marrone left to go to the NFL, and was the head coach there for 3 years. Came to Middle when that tenure ended, and has done nothing but incredible things and seen really great improvement in the defense each year under Schaefer. And boy, you look at a Reed Blankenship and Reed. You know, he's one of those kids who just soaks up everything he can get from coaching. And you know, his freshman year was Coach Schaefer's first year here, so they've kind of been, you know, married at the hip since, you know, they both got here at the same time. And Reed back there, he's moving positions from strong safety to free this year. Javante Moffitt played 4 games a year ago. And then was redshirted under the new redshirt rule, so he's back for his 5th year and is ready to play. Javante is just a great football. I watched him. I actually called a couple of his high school games when his high school team played in the Class A state championships here, doing those games on television. And Javante was MVP of the Blue Cross Bowl, which is our state championship games, you know, twice for Union City. But he's got ball skills, great instincts. You know, in that linebacking core, who's going to fill the middle linebacking spot is a question. It'll be somebody new because Darius Harris, who is a longtime starter for Middle, graduated. Khalil Brooks, as you mentioned, when folks see him, they'll say, that's a linebacker. But, I mean, he's undersized, but, man, he is fast. And the way they play him on the edge, he tries to get angles. You know, he is very close to becoming the all-time sack leader at Middle. And, you know, and with his size, you think, man, that's hard to believe because the guy he's chasing in that category is a guy named Eric Walden, who was a prototypical NFL defensive end and played a long time for the Colts and Titans and other folks. So, you know, for Khalil, he's kind of a hybrid guy, defensive end, outside linebacker. In this system, they all, it's kind of looks like an amoeba out there a little bit when they get lined up, but they all just try to get angles is what it's all about.
Well, Chip, as you mentioned, very tough schedule for the Blue Raiders, especially with a young team that's rebuilding. We know it's Michigan on the road to open on Saturday, then in week 3, Duke down at your place, and then on the road to Iowa. And I don't know if Middle Tennessee State has ever played Iowa before, but Kinnick Stadium is a crazy place to play a game. This is really a big challenge the first 3 out of 4 weeks for a young team, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, that schedule would be challenging for anybody.
Yeah.
And in the 4th game, you know, you cannot go to sleep on who our September 7th opponent is, and that's Tennessee State. So that's they're right down the road in Nashville, and they, you know, we used to be in the same league when Middle was 1AA. So they'll come in with a little chip on their shoulder and you know, kind of a backyard rivalry. You know, so many of our kids went to high school with the TSU kids and our students because we both draw so many students from you know, within 100 miles of Nashville that's always whenever we play, it's a huge game, you know, from attendance because everybody wants a little bragging rights in there. But you're right, with Michigan, Duke, Iowa, and we have not played Iowa before in football. So it is you could have a really, really good football team and be 1-3 when the end of September comes. And then we go into conference play against our first 2 games in Conference USA are against Marshall at home. Marshall's picked to win our division this year. And then the next game, October 12th, at Florida Atlantic, where, they expect to bounce back there this year. They won 10 games in 2017. And by the way, Brett Stockstill, our former quarterback, is now an assistant coach at FAU. And then on October 19th, you go to North Texas, who's picked to win the West. So, Middle's first 7 games are, there's barely a chance to catch your breath in there.
After they navigate the tough non-conference slate, are they now at a talent level in the program that they're going to be able to compete with and maybe have a chance to duplicate that 7-1 conference record again this year?
The thing is that I look at this football team and look at personnel and it's like, if you can, my take is, if you can get some quarterback play that doesn't hurt you,
mm-hmm.
that this team is pretty deep elsewhere, both at running back, receiver, the line, and on defense, it should be Scott Schaefer's best defense in 3 years, and the best defense here in probably 7 or 8 years. So you feel pretty good about that side of the ball if they can stay healthy. And, the whole linchpin of the whole thing is what kind of quarterback player you're going to get. And right now, we just don't know.
Well, looking ahead to the opener, as far as injury reports, we don't get that much up here on Michigan. Not much at all. We know that we have Andrew Stuber, one of our tackles, is out for the season. But as far as minor injuries or nagging injuries, we have no idea. So I don't know what Coach Stockstill does. But is the team in pretty good shape for Saturday?
Well, typically he's a little more open about it. But what's good for the goose is good for the gander. He's being tight-lipped about all that this week too. So, my typical question, if I was going to say, okay, where do we normally get a minor injury or two at this
mm-hmm.
time of year, and that would be, how healthy is the big? It seems like always the big question is how healthy are you up front and on the offensive and defensive lines, and you have a guy named Josh Fannin who's been the starting center the last couple of years, and he's an important guy that you don't want him to get mixed up because the way this offense runs, the center makes a lot of the calls when they come to the line. So you want, if you've got a new quarterback back there, which we will, you'd like to have an experienced guy getting him the ball and making sure that it's on the spot every time when we run so much out of the shotgun. So, that's I have not heard of anything major, that it's been a pretty clean fall camp. But again, like I said, this week, we'll get a much clearer picture about 7:30. Or probably maybe a little before that, about 6:30 Saturday night when they come out for warm-ups and see who's got pads on and see who's in street clothes.
Well, as you mentioned at the top of the interview, you're going to have to dig out some of your long-sleeve shirts, and I think that's true. After a long, hot camp, I know it was very warm up here in August, and I know it's a lot warmer down there during camp, but the temps are supposed to start out in the 60s, be down in the 50s, so I think both teams are going to love that weather Saturday night.
I think so. I mean, I think it'll energize both teams because, you have been just beating on each other on your team, on your own teammates for 4 weeks
mm-hmm.
now and gone through that and all over the country, there's so much, everybody does such a great job now as far as, hydration, making sure, taking care of the bodies of the players, much more than back in our era when, it was a sign of weakness if you wanted to get a sip of water, that kind of thing. But kind of the Junction Boys deal. But I think when they pop out there and it's 67 degrees or whatever, when they get there for warm-ups and and drop it into the 50s. To me, it's going to energize me. I can tell you that already. So I think it will for them as well. And our guys, they're not unfamiliar with going into tough atmospheres to play. There's going to be 110,000 people plus there, and not one of them is going to get on the field to play. So that's the message that Coach always hands out. He goes, just worry about those 22 on the other side, and go from there. And Michigan's are quite good enough, and that's plenty to worry about. So I hope our guys get to enjoy it a little bit. I know me and my guys, we're actually coming over to campus. My radio crew, we're coming over early, since it is a night game, and have an opportunity to look around campus a little bit and kind of soak some of that in. Because I like to make the most out of these trips. We're going to the Tigers game on Friday night, and so looking forward to that. And then a little football on Saturday.
Our guest today has been the longtime radio play-by-play voice of Middle Tennessee State football and basketball, Chip Walters. It sounds like your schedule is packed for the trip up here, Chip, so enjoy, and we thank you for taking the time, so being very generous with your time this morning.
All right, appreciate it, guys. We'll talk to you and look forward to seeing you on Saturday.
Quick Hits is next as we wrap it up for another week here on The Michigan Man, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. On Quick Hits today, nothing new on the injury front to discuss. So here are some game day facts for you. This is the first meeting between these two teams. Coach Rick Stockstill is in his 14th year at Middle Tennessee State and has a record of 87-78. Last year they were 8-6 overall, 7-1 in the East Division of Conference USA. They have 11 returning starters, 4 on offense, 6 on D, and 1 specialist. They played in last year's New Orleans Bowl and lost 45-13 to Appalachian State. Now, the weatherman says it's going to be overcast most of the day on Saturday with a high in the low 70s. Temps at kickoff, though, should be in the low 60s and dropping into the upper 50s during the game, sort of perfect weather for a game in late August. Now, the weatherman is saying there is a 40% chance of showers late in the evening, so hopefully we get the game over with before any kind of rain comes in. At any rate, that will do it for our Visitors Edition this week for the home opener with Middle Tennessee State. Whether you're watching on BTN or are in the Big House, enjoy the day. We have waited a long time for this. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Have a great Wolverine weekend, everyone. Think victory, beat Middle Tennessee State. I'll see you back here next week. On Tuesday, my scheduled guest is the angel of the Big House, Detroit News beat writer Angelique Chengelis. We'll recap the opener and look ahead to next week's game. On Thursday, we'll be joined by the radio play-by-play voice of Army football, Rich DeMarco. So until we meet again, take care, and as always, go Blue. Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!